Hello, everyone. Welcome to the News Browse News broadcast. Global News reports that a U.S. Defense Department official stated Thursday that Canada has yet to make the hard decisions and trade-offs needed to be a credible military partner with the United States. This criticism comes days after the U.S. paused the Permanent Joint Board on Defense to reassess how this forum benefits shared North American defense. Prime Minister Mark Carney dismissed the move, calling it premature to project long-term plans and emphasizing Canada's commitment to spending money well. However, the U.S. official expressed frustration over Canada's delayed review of F-35 fighter jet procurement and a lack of a clear roadmap to meet NATO's new target of spending at least 3.5% of GDP on core defense needs by 2035. Canada recently met NATO's previous 2% target, but the U.S. stressed the need for resourced investments. Defense Minister David McGuinty countered by highlighting historic investments in continental defense, Arctic security, military readiness, and new procurements, including River-class destroyers and submarines. A Parliamentary Budget Office report noted the absence of public projection details for reaching the 3.5% target, estimating an average of $33.5 billion annually in additional cash expenditures over the next decade. A member of the Manitoba legislature, Josh Gwenter of the Progressive Conservative Party, is facing strong criticism for remarks he made regarding the high-profile case of Colten Boushie. During a debate on a resolution about the right to defend one's home with force, Gwenter asserted that the Saskatchewan farmer who killed Colten Boushie was a victim. Colten Boushie, a Cree man, was shot dead a decade ago near Biggar, Saskatchewan. Gerald Stanley, the farmer, was acquitted of second-degree murder after testifying that he believed Boushie and others were on his property to steal vehicles, and the gun discharged accidentally. Manitoba Premier Wab Kanew has publicly called for Gwenter to apologize, describing his comments as hateful and divisive. However, Gwenter has refused to apologize, maintaining that a trial was held and the farmer was found not guilty. This report comes from the Canadian press. Global News reports that Canada's telecommunications regulator, the CRTC, announced a new rule requiring major online streaming services to contribute 15% of their Canadian revenues towards supporting Canadian and Indigenous content. This new mandate is 3 times the initial 5% contribution requirement set in 2024, which is currently facing legal challenges from companies like Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. The CRTC stated that these changes are expected to stabilize funding at over $2 billion for Canadian and Indigenous content, including French-language programming and news. In a balancing move, traditional broadcasters who currently contribute between 30% and 45% will see their requirement lowered to 25%. The rules also specify how this money must be spent, including contributions to production funds and direct investment in Canadian content. Streamers with over $100 million in annual Canadian revenues must allocate 30% of their spending towards partnerships with Canadian broadcasters and independent producers. These regulations, part of the Online Streaming Act's implementation, also require platforms to make Canadian and Indigenous content more visible to audiences. British Columbia announced it will rename the Site C Hydro Dam after its deceased former premier, John Horgan, according to the Canadian press. Premier David Eby made the announcement in Victoria, attended by Horgan's family. Eby noted the complex decision, acknowledging Horgan's initial reservations about the project. Horgan famously stated he had held many positions on the Site C dam, but ultimately prioritized British Columbians and the province's best interests. When his NDP government took office in 2017, construction, which began in 2015 under the previous Liberal government, was deemed too far along to halt. Horgan's thorough consultation process led to the decision to complete the dam, which became fully operational last year at a cost of $16 billion. The renaming of the John Horgan Dam and Generating Station is intended to reflect the nuanced and challenging decisions he faced and his commitment to the province's welfare. A new study published in Science reveals that thawing permafrost in Canada's north is exposing ancient bedrock, leading to the release of toxic metals and turning subarctic headwater streams a rusty orange and highly acidic. The findings, reported by the Canadian press, indicate an unfolding environmental disaster where some streams in Yukon are now comparable to highly contaminated mining sites. Researchers, including lead author Elliot Skierskan of Carleton University and Sean Carey of McMaster University, use satellite imagery and on-the-ground monitoring to identify 146 visibly impacted streams. They observed an abrupt transition in water quality, with one stream feeding the Olbivi River becoming uninhabitable for most aquatic life by July 2025, exhibiting sulfur concentrations akin to a mining tailings pond and metal levels hundreds to thousands of times higher than safe limits. These changes are killing tundra vegetation and pose a risk to indigenous communities and hikers who rely on these headwaters for drinking water, as well as critical fish spawning grounds. While larger downstream rivers have not yet reached toxic levels, increasing sulfate concentrations are a concern. Scientists urge increased monitoring and public awareness of these climate-driven changes in the rapidly warming Arctic. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.